Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. We are back. It's your man, Pastor T, Coach Young. My mama called me Terrell. This is your amazing session with Legacy Rewind. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise.
Woo, yay.
Oh my goodness. Listen, I am so happy to be back.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
We
welcome
have
back.
a super duper powerful show for you all today. I think I almost said all the single ladies. No, that's not this session
No,
right here.
bro.
But
Neither
it
of
is
us are.
Neither of us.
it is
Yeah.
Legacy Rewind Women's Edition, I believe.
Oh, praise him.
Would y'all please welcome these amazing guests, Pastor Paulette and Pastor Angie, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Hey.
Say hello, everybody.
Hello. Thank
y'all-
you for having us.
Yes.
How y'all doing?
Thank you for having us.
Y'all doing all right?
We're doing fantastic.
Great.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
God
Pastor
is good.
Paulette is one of those amazing executive pastors for our family life pastor, and Pastor Angie is just coming back from last week. But before we get started, I know we want to make sure that we are staying on track, but I have to stop and just say this because there was a couple amazing events while I was away, and we want to say there's a special date today. Happy birthday to one of the amazing creative arts pastors, Pastor Tim. He always
Pastor
keeps us
Tim.
on
Happy
track. So if
birthday.
y'all
That's my
see
dude.
Pastor Tim, tell him I said happy birthday.
Yeah, that's my dude.
And I didn't forget about this. Somebody had an anniversary while we was away.
Yes, we did.
Happy
Pastor
anniversary.
Paulette.
Yes, we did.
You and Pastor Elwood.
And they still together.
27 years.
Yeah.
27 years?
27 years married, 31 years together. I have to get all my time.
Look,
I mean,
you
give
better
me-
get
give
all
me
that
my
time.
flowers.
Roll
Yes,
over
yes,
minutes.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
God
Look,
is good. He's faithful.
he is. And that is just so amazing. I think sometimes, I believe, the more birthdays that you get to have, the more you start to really value what we would sometimes consider younger as little things, but we get to celebrate life, celebrate covenant and relationship. And I never want to skate past those moments because they're just so valuable the more that we get to have them, right?
They are, and they are a great example of love. Elwood is my dude.
Look,
Oh my gosh.
Pastor Wood.
Yeah, anybody that can make you laugh all the time,
All the
even when it
time.
gets on your nerves.
Yeah,
that's a
except
good
for when
thing.
he sleep.
Oh, bless God.
That's about
When
it.
he
but-
sleep.
Okay, that's the
But it's-
rest. You get the
That's the rest
extent of
time.
the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
look,
that's my dude.
and I appreciate y'all so much for stepping in and covering us while we were away. I don't even want to talk about because we'll be somewhere else, but
Right.
we're going to have space to just kind of share with you all just our experiences from us being on our mission trip. We still have our pastors that are making their way back. So we want to give a huge shout out to our executive producers, Pastor Saboma and Dr. Faith.
Yes.
Welcome on.
Yes.
Oh my
can't wait
goodness.
to see y'all. Yeah.
They are
we miss 'em.
probably en route right now as we're filming, but it's nothing like having just solid leadership that just holistically touches every area of life, and we get to do this right here.
get
So
to
look, let's go ahead and jump into this because we're winding up this series that we're in. How y'all been liking the series? What time is it?
Phenomenal.
Oh my God,
amazing.
it's fire. It has
Phenomenal,
been fire.
amazing, fire.
Yeah, very self-reflecting for me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
self-reflecting.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
So I remember the first week Dr. Faith started us off. She intersected the Chronos and Kairos time, and then Pastor Soso got in there. Last week Pastor Tolson. I've been just trying to reflect on some of these things. I heard him all the way in Africa talking about God, my Maker, and then Pastor Mike
Right.
Thornton
Yeah.
comes up this week sealing the deal.
Rip
Oh my
set, yeah.
goodness! So I really want to jump right in here with Pastor Mike. The first thing that when I was y'all were in person, I wasn't. So y'all got to help me out with this because one of the first things that he talked about was his first experience with Dr. Faith. I don't know if y'all remember this, and he was saying how they were college friends, and when they first started out, Pastor Mike and his wife, I think her name is Amber. Forgive me if it's not. Let's go with that. Right. And so he says she comes up to them and she asked to pray for them. And the first thing he said, they were expecting, they were with child. They didn't tell nobody, didn't tell their mom. They were just rejoicing that God was expanding their family. And she steps on the scene and says, she want to pray for the baby that's in the womb. First time that whole experience. So I bring that up. I just want to kind of start this conversation off with, we have amazing pastors. What was your first experience with Dr. Faith?
Oh, wow. My first experience with Dr. Faith was online.
Okay.
I was going through I would say, a difficult time in my life of transition. And I was really trying to hear from God. And, God, he works in mysterious ways, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm on social media. I'm not one to click the video and just listen to just anyone.
Yeah.
But I was led to listen to her that specific day.
Yeah.
And I was listening to her, and I promise it was like she was sitting in my living room with me.
Wow.
Everything that she was speaking into what I was going through in my life at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that day. But I listened to the entire live that she did.
Really?
And it was I knew it was nobody but God, because the things that she was saying, it just spoke directly to my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pastor Angie, what about you?
I too experienced her on social media in 2014. I will never forget.
2014.
2014.
10 years ago.
Yeah. My spiritual
Wow.
big sister sent me a periscope
Wow.
of
Oh my goodness.
Matthew Stevens, and he introduced her. She was in her vehicle,
Wow.
and she was talking about worship. And that is my heartstrings right there, because
Yeah.
at the time we were pastoring and I was the worship leader. And so everything that she was saying resonated with my heart for worship. It was the language that I needed to convey what I knew I had been hearing heaven saying.
Right.
Yeah.
I had the language now to get it out to
Wow.
the people that I was leading. So she was my person at that time.
Yeah.
And so that was my experience with her.
That's funny you say there was a topic and there was language, because that was the same experience for me, but it was purpose and destiny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was about purpose and destiny.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how God intersects our lives right at a specific time? And the scripture says that he gives us pastors. They're literal gifts from God. And, Pastor Mike starts this off with his experience with Dr. Faith and this prophetic experience, and it just kind of mirrors the series that we've been in. And so he goes and starts peeling back the layers. But one of these things I wanted to bring up, he said this, and I really want to get you all's input on this. He says he makes this statement about in what time is it that seeing what God sees, and he says he makes a statement in the series about seeing what God sees beyond what the culture is saying or displaying. Especially every 4 years in the U.S., we have a very, very heightened sensitivity around politics and all of these things. And in our times, we get inundated with media and social media platforms, and all of these things are flooded. But he starts this series conversation off with making sure that we are not so much being led by culture or what it's displaying, but seeing how everything is aligning, seeing the time as God sees it. What are your thoughts behind the dichotomous nature of culture and us seeing the timing of God?
Great question.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the word. So we're in the world, but we're not of it.
Okay.
Right? And so we have to be able to operate in the world, but keep our ears in tune to what God is saying. A lot of times we get distracted, especially on social media, right? We're scanning and we're seeing all these things, and people have a habit of, I have to respond, or I have to now share that, or I have to, do something, right? Instead of just stopping and just saying, Lord, what are you saying in this moment? What are you saying around us? And so it's so important that now the word says, he who has an ear, right, let him hear, right? And we need to be in tune with really hearing what God is saying to the church and to us individually, and not get caught up in all of the things that's happening.
Great. I think that's a great point. I I immediately thought about my children
Okay.
when he said that. And that's because, you'll be raising your kids in the way of the Lord. And here comes the culture,
Yeah.
right? And then your kids, because you have given them the ways of God, they'll have a compassion for a thing that is totally, like you said, against what God has said. And you don't want to break them in the moment, but you still need to bend them back to what God has said about that thing.
Yeah.
Allowing them to still have compassion for people, but not be so with the cause that they take away the foundation of what has been taught. And the culture will, this is why I kept telling Solomon, you got to have your own relationship with God
You
when you go
do.
off to college, bro.
You do.
Yeah.
You can't go on my faith. You have to have an experience of your own, because now everything that we've placed inside of you is going to be tested.
Test it.
Yep.
That is so good.
Yeah.
So Pastor Mike talks about these three areas that we're going to kind of hang our hat on or anchor around. He says, it is a time where God is changing the guard in leadership. He's also said it's a time to go higher, and then it's a time for reconciliation and not retaliation. So, Pastor Paulette, I really want to kind of get your perspective on this, because and I really want you to correct me if I'm wrong. You have a military background. You retired Air Force?
I'm a veteran.
Veteran.
Of the Air Force.
Right.
Yep.
Veteran.
Yep.
Air Force. And so when I heard him say this, I immediately thought about your experience, because and if you, well, let me not assume, in your experience in the military, as was there ever a changing of the guard in leadership? And then, if there was, how did you, as that individual, that disciplinarian, that soldier, that sees the change of how one leader does a thing this way, or gives order or instruction, and then it changes? What was your experience with the changing of the guard in leadership?
Yeah. You have to be adaptable.
Okay.
You have to be flexible. Not everyone leads the same way. And so you have to really start to learn, what is their leadership style? What are their expectations?
Yeah.
And things like that. I think it's important that we don't get tied to a specific person
Yeah.
necessarily, right? But I think it's important too that the people under you, that they are empowered to grow themselves.
Yeah.
I think there is importance that when the leader is not there, right, the team still can function. And that really just makes me think about even our senior leaders, right? They're
Yeah.
able to leave and we can still function. And not just function, but we also still operate with a spirit of excellence, because
Yeah.
we know the leader.
Yeah.
We know the hearts of the leader. And I think it's important to know the heart of the leader. And then when the leader changes, there's a changing of the guard to now learn the heart of the new leader.
Yeah, there is the merit of a leader you find is when in their absence. If their value of how well are things operating after or in the absence of their presence. Now, naturally, but now I'm thinking spiritually. He talks about the changing of the guard. That there have been a lot of leaders, and I'm sure we all in our own church experience, we've experienced a lot of leaders that have transitioned on, and so there are a lot of new leaders that are coming up. There are some that are still here but are still transitioning. I wonder, with understanding the times and change, Pastor Angie, talk to us about you seeing transitions spiritually in leadership. Talk to us about the changing of the guard in leadership with those, maybe your contemporaries or those coming up from behind you, some of those younger millennials or Gen X or whoever. What do you think this changing of the guard is doing for them?
So one of the things that I thought about when Pastor Paulette was speaking was, are they coachable and teachable? That's a very, very weighty thing that you need to make sure that you are pouring into. So I have to speak from my own experience. When my mom passed and my dad passed, there was a changing of the guard. And I didn't want the position. I didn't ask for it. But my sibling said to me, my baby brother, who I'm 18 years older than, he said, "You do know you and Terrell are Mama and Dave now, right?" And I'm like, "What?" And I had to immediately posture myself, change my perspective, and remember now that they are gone, you have to continue making sure they remember that legacy, but also what is your epitaph going to read? Right? And so when I think of changing of the guard, I remember being coachable and teachable, like really asking, not even knowing that they were going to be leaving, but remember asking them questions. I remember you and I had a conversation about when we were kids, did your mama leave you in the car when she went shopping, or did you stay home? You said your mom left y'all at home. Or did you say she left you in the car? I can't remember what it was.
I've had both of those experiences
But
in the car and at home.
I
Yes,
had to
have.
call my mother and ask her, "Ma, why didn't you take us in the grocery store with you when you would go grocery shopping?" And she was, with all the wisdom in the world, she said, "Because I didn't want Child Protective Services to take y'all from me, because y'all was in there asking questions for stuff that I knew I couldn't afford, and I didn't want to have to spank y'all in front of the people. So I had sense enough to not tempt you all, because even though I gave instruction, I knew you all weren't going to follow it. I had sense." So those types of things, I never thought about why that was something that was important. But I stopped taking Solomon to the store with me after she said that. Because I noticed before, I was taking him to the store and he was reaching for stuff. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll save myself if I don't take him. And so those little small lessons that really can free somebody now,
Right.
who always take their child to the store. Leave your baby at home so you won't have to spank them, or lovingly encourage them while you at the store.
Right.
Yeah. So
I appreciate
yeah.
that insert pertaining to this leadership style.
Yeah.
So, and thank you all so much for just entertaining these thoughts I have. So, Pastor Mike, he shifts into this leadership style. He's talking, I believe this is 1 Samuel 28, right? And so he's talking about Saul, and Saul having this relationship with Samuel, and he paints this very vivid picture. Samuel is priest, he's prophet, and he's also the last judge, right? And so he talks about this, the changing of the guard, then the shifting of going higher, because Samuel passes away, right? There's a story in scripture, and the setup is that Samuel's passed away. Saul is in the midst of about to be in a war, and he needs his leadership, the guidance Samuel, normally always gives him. And so Saul, because he had this codependent relationship, he could only make choices or decisions based upon what Samuel was doing, as opposed to him establishing his own relationship with the Lord. This this young man goes and entreats the witch of Endor to go and raise up Samuel. And, he was like, "Hey, I promise ain't nothing gonna happen to you." And he goes and does this, and Samuel comes up, and y'all can find this in scripture. I don't know if y'all was there at service. I'm mesmerized by the fact that he makes this statement right here, and it's such a very daunting statement. He says, Saul's in conflict and war with the Philistines. He needs guidance from Samuel to know what to do. So Pastor Mike talks about God shaking our codependency on a man or a woman instead of our own personal relationship with God. As pastors, they go through, there have been so many different influences in culture and social media, and everyone has almost like this codependent relationship, as opposed to them developing their own relationship with the Lord. What do you all think about this concept or this idea of codependency, where we've seen people become more codependent on the person or the gift as opposed to their own personal relationship?
Great question. So I guess I'll go first. God is a jealous God. And you can have someone on the throne of your heart in that place where you're codependent, so much so to the thing that the Lord knows that will cause you to have a disdain. He'll make that thing happen because you had that as an idol. And so he will not have any other gods before him. And I don't think people intend to have that as a thing, but because you're looking to them so much and they're giving the word, they are effective in their gift, right? They're giving the word, but you forget to seek the Lord. And so the Lord is not going to allow that. He has to bring us back to him. It's all about him. Yes, he used the vessels and he uses them unto honor, but you cannot be so dependent, even with children. Like when I came to Legacy Church, Center Church, I didn't even realize that kids have soul ties with their parents, right? So when I heard that language, I immediately, because I know how much I love my kids, I immediately started asking God to sever the soul tie with me and this baby boy, because you know them babies. I'm like, do it, God. I don't want to have that. And so you have to recognize when a thing is a thing, and sometimes in this culture we don't. We will use it. We'll use the language of, oh, I'm just paying homage. I'm just giving respect. I'm giving honor to whom honor is due. No, you are codependent on so much so to you. Your relationship with the Lord is not where it needs to be because you're hanging on every word. You're not trying the Spirit by the Spirit. You're not trying the word of what they're saying. You're accepting everything and going in that way. And God, when he don't play the radio when it comes to that, he will make sure that he gets the glory, however that looks.
Yeah, I'll say been there, done that. I think what happens is I can speak for at least my experience.
Yeah.
I was very young in God and my walk, and I was not mature, and so I just had this hunger for God. Like it was just like I just want to do whatever pleases Him. Like I just want to just be right in His sight, right? And I didn't have language around identity. I didn't have language around any of the language that I have now.
Yeah.
But it was just such a hunger that whatever the man or woman of God said, it was like that was God speaking, right? And you dare not question or challenge what is being said, right? And so, I have a heart for those who are young in God and young in ministry, not by age, but just in their experience, because, sometimes they can get into the wrong environment that nurtures the codependency, right? And it's like, nope, come to me, come to me, come to me, instead of directing the person to God and telling them the importance of having a personal relationship, because it's vitally important to have that intimacy and that personal relationship with God. So I can see that exactly what you said. God is a jealous God, and we shall have no other God before Him. And what happens is you start to put that man or woman of God up on a pedestal. I think that we definitely have to honor, reverence, and respect them. But I think that sometimes leaders will blur the lines when it comes to honor, respecting them, as well as, instead of just putting them up on this pedestal. And
there are some leaders who still pray, help them, Lord. But there are some developing leaders, some leaders who absolutely tell you, seek the Lord. Not like you need to find out for you heard what I said, thus saith the Lord. But go ahead and challenge that or prove that with your own experience, with what God is saying to you. I absolutely agree, because you just brought up to my mind when I was a babe. I don't know if I wanted to I know I cared for my pastor, and his word was bond, right? And him and his wife got a divorce, and I back to the slid. Yeah, yeah.
Lord,
I
have
said that's all.
mercy.
I said, you know what, Lord, you know what, that's all right.
Back to the sled.
Back to the slid.
But that's why the code it's important not
Yep.
to have that
Yep.
codependency
Yep.
Yes.
because they have a level of humanity, right? They're
Yeah.
human. And so when you put them up on this pedestal, any mistake or anything that happens,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
crumbles,
It
right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a combination, right? You want to make sure that you honor, respect, love, and hold them in
Reverence.
high
Yep.
esteem and reverence.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
yes.
because you want to get the teaching, you
Absolutely.
want to get what God is
The anointing, the mantle,
absolutely
all of those
that's
things.
pouring
Yep.
into you
Yep.
from them. But at the same time, as they're giving that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I love our leaders, right? As they're
my
giving
gosh.
that, they're also empowering,
Absolutely.
empowering and
Empowering you to have.
encouraging you to have that relationship
Absolutely.
with God.
That's good. That's
He
so
he
good.
says this. He says, when you become codependent upon your pastor or your pastor's gift, it will cause you to negate the oil you must cultivate in the secret place. When he said this, I immediately went to CC Winans,
You don't know the
alabaster
oil.
box.
You don't know the
You
cost.
don't know the cost. The story of this young lady who's in the literal presence of Jesus, right? And she makes a very intentional choice to break open this alabaster box. Her prophetic act to create a space of worship in the presence of the leader, and then they all start to ridicule her, and we know the story. This woman, and I immediately start thinking about her, just her courage to do something like that in the presence of your leader, but knowing what it will cost you. We live in a culture now that sometimes it does foster codependency, and it sometimes is void of us still pursuing the basic essentials of cultivating our own personal relationship with the Lord. When we're in this series about what time is it, there is a time. They go down through the 28 different seasons. A time to be born, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. It's a time to love and hate. Time to all of these times, and if we are not aware specifically of what time it is that we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be responding to God. How we're supposed to be pulling back from the things that we become so familiar with, whether it's, whatever platform this is. And I think God creates opportunities for us to really engage in his timing for us. And sometimes, if we are not aware of the time frame that God has us in, or the season that he has us in, we'll almost curse the time that we're in. We'll look at it as if I'm in this hard, rough season, and God, where are you? And things are just not going right. When it may just be that he's creating an opportunity for you and him to cultivate oil for your personal self.
That's good. That's good.
I know like Pastor Paulette, you said that mature or that immature believer, or let's say that developing
Developing, yeah.
believer who sometimes looks to the leader to do everything for me. But one thing I can say, and I appreciate our leaders, that gives us opportunities to grow.
Yep.
That gives us that they're aware. I won't tell it all. We were having a conversation while we were away, and I saw how they created an opportunity for me to be in a place to learn and grow, and it wasn't like comfortable. It was purposeful, right? And so, with that being said, Pastor Mike always he encourages us. We talked about the changing of the guard and leadership. We talked about this codependency. He also brings up this space about how we're going to have to go higher. We're certain things of when you're trying to see in the time that you're in and become aware of your complete surroundings. There are certain things you won't be able to see unless you elevate in the spirit. Like we have to go high. There's certain things, especially now. We can. I'm not going to name everything, but just within media, whether it was the Olympics, whether it was a neighborhood thing that happened locally or in politics, if we're looking at this baseline event, fill in the blank of whatever the event is, and we're seeing this from a eye to eye level, we may miss God's perspective on what's happening.
Right.
Talk to us briefly about what when he said, it's time for us to go higher. What was the first thing that came to your mind, Pastor Paulette?
Ooh, first thing that came to my mind was just not being distracted, right? It's sort of like I guess it's a parable or a tale about the eagle and the on the ground. There's a parable about you being an eagle and being higher above everything else. I can't think of the specific details about it, but for me, it was like being higher above all of the circumstances and the things that are happening below.
Okay.
Right. And just really making sure that, because a lot of it's distractions. It's opportunities to get your eyes and your mind and your ears out of what God is saying.
Yeah.
Right. And so now you're in the natural, you're in the flesh, and you see this and you want to say this about that and things like that. And it's like, no, just hold your peace. Like be higher than what's happening. Right.
Yeah.
Hold your peace. Stop for a minute. Listen. Just listen, because not everything is worthy of a response, right? And then you have to be careful, because sometimes people will respond, they're quick to respond, and they have to come back and retract those words.
Yeah.
Right? Or they're seeing something and they think they know what they're seeing, but they haven't stopped long enough to seek God and say, God, is this really what's going on? Is this what I see? And so I think to be higher is to just really be in the spirit, right? To be higher than everything else that's going on, and just really step back and say, God, I want to see from your perspective what's happening. He
Okay.
talked about Issachar, right?
Yes.
You probably was going to go there.
Look,
and I was
come
just
on.
like, yes, that's exactly right. Because he was able to see, he knew what to do next.
Yes.
We sometimes get so fast and we're just operating and moving that we're misstepping, right? Instead of just stopping and pausing and just seeking the face of God. God, what are you saying in this moment before I make that next move?
Pastor Angie, what do you do that causes you to go higher? What's the thing that you do that causes you to see the same thing that we all see? Whatever the conflict is, whatever the challenge is, what is the thing that you do that causes you to see it from a different perspective?
I'm led by the Spirit. They that are led by the Spirit are the sons of God.
Okay.
I have learned through my amazing husband to not lead with my emotions.
Okay.
Yep.
I've learned to not expose my emotions all the time as a woman, because pray much for us, right? And so in developing in that area, I don't have to respond to everything that I see. And I move with compassion.
Yeah.
Because we don't know why folks is doing what they're doing, right?
Mm.
I am a inward person. I'm looking inside first. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Right? Why am I responding that way? Why is this getting on my nerves?
Right.
I'm always self-reflecting, self-checking myself. And so that's how I'm lit. You, my mother used to be like, you so heavenly minded, earthly good. I try not to be there, but if I could always be in this, because you need to not be weird, right?
Right.
But if I could always just be, I'm always asking God, what are you saying? And I that is a space of maturity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I ain't always been that way.
Right.
That ain't always been my testimony. That is a space of maturity. And so I've gotten to the space where, So you know what? This thing has happened so that I could respond. So what are you trying to get me to see, Lord? I'm not going to respond because I want to respond, right?
Yeah.
What are you trying to get me to see? And Lord, what's in them that would make them do that thing? What should I be covering them in prayer?
Yeah.
What should I agree with you? What are you trying to get me to see that I need to agree with you with concerning them, Lord? It's apparent to me that you expose that so that I could be in prayer for them. What am I supposed to be praying for? I'm led by the Spirit. I'm led by the Spirit.
You all are next level believers right now, because I'm just I'm just gonna be honest. Y'all pray for me. I'm developing. That's what
Oh, bless
that's
you.
where I've been living at, and I just need to. We need to see people's humanity sometimes, and I love how you were saying not everything is worthy of a response right
Yeah.
now. And to his last point, he talks about we have to become more reconciling to reconcile as opposed to retaliating. And when I first heard him say this, I immediately thought about our culture of clapback.
Oh,
We immediately, I got to clap back for that,
Yeah.
and I want to have to say something. But when you are a believer, there are expectations of how we respond to the situations that we're in. There are expectations for us in leadership. You are in a very dominating space of men and
Yep.
people that don't look like us.
Yep.
And
she's
I
creating tables for us to sit
Yes,
at.
absolutely.
Bless God.
Absolutely.
and I bring you both up because both of you are an entrepreneur, and you're both are leaders in your families and leaders in ministry. You both have been given a lot of responsibility in people's lives, not just your families, but other people are depending on you both, and so I know this just as a general fact. There are a lot of times that you probably want to respond or retaliate to those individuals who are developing or condescending. Talk to us about how you all stay in the area of reconciling as opposed to retaliating.
So the word says that we should be peacemakers. Right?
Okay.
When you think about leaders, I tell my kids this all the time, that leaders are held to a higher standard. They should be, and if you don't want to be held to a higher standard, then you just don't need to be a leader because it just comes with the territory. And I think that because you know that you're held to a higher standard, the things that you do, the things that you say, can impact lives literally.
Yeah.
Right. And that even takes me back to the military days, right?
Sure.
Literally people's lives, they could lose their lives because if I make a mistake, right? Or if I do something that I wasn't supposed to do. And so I think that when you're always keeping that in the back of your mind, that your character matters, right? How you respond to people matters, what you say, what you do, all of that is held to a higher standard. And when you know that, that's how you operate. So I know that somebody somewhere is watching me, if it's nobody but God, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that my character always speaks for me. So if I'm not there, I know what people are probably saying, right? Because my character, and the other thing is just being yourself all the time. So I'm going to be the same way around you that I'm going to be around someone else. I'm going to be the same way at church that I am at work. Like your character and who you are, it just needs to always be reflective. And I think that means you're not popping off at the mouth, right? I'm not doing the head thing at work. You see what I'm saying? So you're making sure that as a leader, that you're setting an example. And so that means that you're trying to make sure that everything is flowing the way it should be. So that reconciliation piece, and not being someone that's always trying to get back at someone, I think comes with maturity. It comes with knowing who you are, right? And that you don't have to add your 2 cents to the conversation and you're okay. But it's all of that. And I'll say this one last thing before I turn it over to Pastor Angie, but I remember when Dr. Faith was talking about forgiving people, right?
Yeah.
And that you can forgive people because you forgive people does not mean you now have to have a relationship.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that helped me tremendously because I felt like if I forgive you, that
I
means
gotta
now
let
we
you back in.
right, we gotta
Yeah,
be
no.
friends. And so that's the same thing Pastor Mike was talking about with reconciliation. You can reconcile with someone means you're going beyond just forgiving them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the relationship now has to go back to the way it was before you reconciled. That helped me tremendously.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pastor Angie, last couple seconds on his last point of reconciliation as opposed to retaliation. What you got to say?
So sometimes you have to reconcile with yourself that the result that you're looking for is not going to happen. Mic drop.
I think
Like,
she was dropping a mic on
yeah,
that one.
period. Point
Kaboom.
blank, the end. I'm serious.
Wow.
And I have had to do that several times. Wrote a whole Dear John letter that I know this person should have had, and I reconciled. Holy Spirit was like, you can't get him that. You can't say that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to turn into this. It's going to end up like this. No. You get that to me. Burn it. And let it go. Reconcile with yourself that the response that you think you are owed, you're not going to get.
Wow.
I had to be all right with it. I had to be all right with that.
That's so good. That makes me think about the number of emails that I have written and literally backspace,
Yeah,
backspace,
yeah,
backspace,
that part,
backspace.
that part.
I got it all out. And then I'm backspace. You're not going to send
Got
that.
some
You
drafts.
can't.
Yeah,
You can't.
Yeah, you're not going to send that.
But look at what it does for you. Though.
Yes,
it grows
therapeutic.
the credit, the credibility of who God has called you to be,
Yeah.
who you have developed into. Because anointed for a clapback, that used to be my testimony.
Yeah.
Lord have
Bless
mercy.
God, but some of that stuff doesn't even need to be formulated
Yeah.
as a thought.
Yeah,
That's a place of
absolutely.
maturity, though.
Absolutely.
I ain't always been. I give God the glory and the praise for where I have come from. I'm so
Yes,
serious.
yes,
I
yes.
reconcile with myself that the response that I thought I should have or
may
get,
not get.
I ain't gonna get it.
Yep.
So be all right with it. And then I
Listen.
free that person from that space too.
That's good.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, ladies, listen, I can't thank you all enough for just welcoming me back in here to this Legacy Rewind space and us going back through some of these amazing nuggets as we're winding up this What Time Is It series. We talked about the changing of the guard and leadership. We talked about going higher. And you guys just finished it perfectly with the reconciliation as opposed to retaliation. You all make me feel like I'm growing in my faith. I appreciate
You're
y'all.
developing.
Good.
Bless
I'm
God.
developing.
Bless God.
So listen, as we winding up, before we get out of here, ladies and gentlemen, I want to, July, our rest time is over. Can I say it like that? So look at somebody, look right in the camera. We're going back to 2 services.
2 services, saints.
Two
Bless
services is coming up.
God.
Here, I want to share with y'all what's happening in August. So right now, Pastor Tim has shared this with me, so I got to share it with you, right? August 7th, we have Bible study that's going to be back out. We have a special guest, I believe, Alton Eugene will be here. We're going to have a worship week, y'all.
yes.
You all, I don't care where you at, you need to find your way here.
Yes.
Wake Forest, North Carolina. We going to be in the most amazing worship week. So that's August 7th. August 9th, Lampstand is going to be
Back
fire.
at it.
We got prayer training. Also, August 10th, Pastor Tim, I don't know if this is open to the public or everybody, but we have a songwriting workshop.
It is.
Yeah.
It's open?
They just have to
Yeah.
register.
Okay, let me tell y'all something. Look, people pay thousands of dollars for what you all have access to. Please, please, please register. Register for this songwriting workshop on August 10th. We also have August the 11th, a financial town hall meeting. So make sure that you are coming in. I believe that's for after the 11 a.m. service, right? Make sure you all checking these dates out. August 14th, we back at Bible study. August 17th, somebody say Freedom Day. That's
Day.
right. Freedom Day is August 17th. August 18th, we have Builders and Recognition Appreciation. Oh my goodness. And it is A&D graduation. I know at least 2 graduates going to be very excited for the A&D graduation. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been your August announcements. this has been the most amazing time that we can have, sealing up the deal with what time is it. I'm so thankful for my amazing, beautiful guests, Pastor Paulette and Pastor Angie, and always that amazing executive pastor that's behind these scenes, keeping us all the way together as we wrapping it up, Pastor Tim. And a huge shout out to our pastors as they're making their way safely back
Yes.
Come
home.
on back. Come on
Pastors,
back.
we love you all.
We
Can't
love
wait
you.
to see you all.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Legacy Rewind. We will see you